tic-tac-toe, a winner.
But Temu is still allowed? All right, so let's talk about the TikTok ban. What it is, what it means for publishers, BookTokers, and readers, and where BookTok is going if TikTok really does get banned from the US. First, let's get a little background, shall we? Disclaimer, I am not a lawyer. I have never been a law student. I am simply a chronically online marketing girly with an English degree. If I mess something up, let me know in the comments, but do so nicely, please. I bruise easily. So, what is the TikTok ban officially? Bill 7521 is a new law called, sorry, I cannot remember this, the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act. Its main goal is to keep Americans safe from apps that are controlled by companies from countries that the US considers a threat. Example, TikTok, and anything related to it or developed by its parent company, ByteDance. It makes it illegal for any company to offer, update, or manage apps in the US that are controlled by foreign enemies. China is in the US's burn book, and companies that could offer the apps are like Apple, your internet service provider, etc. And if you think that Apple would potentially fight this or, take the hit to keep whatever money or whatever they're making from it, they would be fined $5,000 per user. So think again. If it's officially passed, which it has passed in the House of Representatives, but it has not, been seen by the Senate, then ByteDance would have 6 months to sell TikTok to an American company, or it is going to just be banned in America. Why are the girls fighting? Because ByteDance is a Chinese-based company. So at any time, the Chinese government could order ByteDance to hand over the data of any of the users on the app. Chinese law allows them to do that. And it doesn't matter if the servers are in the US or Singapore, because it's a Chinese-based company that owns the data. Why is that a problem? To be completely honest, I don't think our generation really cares that much about our data. I'm sure there is much more nuance to this than what I have found or what I know about this, but at least where most of us are at, pretty much everything about us is somewhere else on the internet, specifically through our social media profiles. We're a very open generation online. And I personally don't mind that I'm tracked across different apps, because to be given up oddly specific ads, being shown exactly what you want to see isn't always a bad deal. And obviously, part of data tracking is location tracking. So TikTok's tracking its data, knows your general location. If you've ever posted a TikTok and you go in there, you maybe have never told it where you are, but it lists your city and state or, landmarks close to you as options for the location of your post. That is how they do that with location tracking. And I can see why this is a concern for some people. Like, I don't want to come at it totally biased. I am biased, but I can see why some people do not like this. Does anyone care about little old me and my little TikTok account and what I do for work and how much time I spend with my dog? Like, no, nobody cares. But, if the president or a journalist taking on a really risky story where they might need to be undercover and things like that, I can see why they might not want a foreign government to know where they are. That is one of the main reasons TikTok is not allowed to be downloaded onto government devices. And that's fair. And to make sure I cover all my bases here, TikTok not only has its own tracking, it also uses third-party tracking. So when you say that you have asked the app not to track you, theoretically, those third-party apps can still be tracking you, specifically across other apps and what you're doing online, as well as your location. And we have no way of knowing exactly where all that information goes. But here's the thing. TikTok has already created Project Texas to deal with this situation. And it's formed the TikTok US Data Security System, USDS, to make sure that everything stays in the US. Basically, it seems like this would cover the issue about our data. In this case, ByteDance would still control the app and they would still control the algorithm, if that makes sense. But any data that comes from using the app, that would be stored in the US. I assume that means that any revenue the app is making and the source code behind its super secret algorithm that's ridiculously accurate, that all stays with ByteDance. And this has been a gradual movement. But it's, from what I understand, all of our data is now in the US, and then any old data on their servers is being deleted. And on TikTok's FAQ section on their site, there's a specific question where it's like, does China have my data? The answer beat around the bush as to whether the Chinese government had the ability to request that data, which means they could have. But they do claim on their site that that has never happened. And they're saying that they're making this a moot point by moving all the US user data to the US. That way, if the Chinese government later came to ByteDance and was like, hand over, this specific person's user data, I don't know if they go after specific people, but it would make it so that if the Chinese government went to ByteDance and wanted user data, they literally could not comply because they don't have it. Because it would be under the direction of Oracle, which is like the cloud, which, judging by the name, I guess is in Texas. If you're a techie person, please explain that part to me. I don't understand where the cloud is. So theoretically, provided that our data has actually been deleted off of those other servers, that means that our data on TikTok is safe, or as unsafe as it would be if it was on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the like. Because wherever you've made a free social media account, you are paying for that service with your data. It's not completely free. Their FAQ section also says that every single line of code that goes into the Oracle environment, whether it comes from TikTok, ByteDance, open source, or third party, will be inspected and tested. So there's no sneaky backdoors into our data. So you could say that all of that stuff on their site is lies. That's, possible. But if it's true and all this is actually happening, then theoretically the reason that there is a TikTok ban being proposed, it doesn't matter because our data is already safe. But we have seen the level of comprehension about technology in the last TikTok ban hearing.
Mr. Chu, does TikTok access the home Wi-Fi network?
So I don't think that solution is necessarily going to make everyone happy. The most important part of the bill at that point would then be ByteDance selling TikTok. The problem is that 6-month ultimatum is impossible to comply with, even if ByteDance wanted to, and they don't want to. ByteDance would have to completely separate itself from the US section of TikTok. And no one really knows what that would look like. Does that mean that we can't interact with TikTok users in other countries? Does that mean ByteDance has to sell the app in its entirety? As in everywhere it operates? Would they even sell that source code? Because it's valuable. Obviously, people know that TikTok has the best algorithm out there right now. And I can imagine that's pretty valuable information because people are genuinely addicted to the app. I can fully understand that. I am too. Having an algorithm that can get people addicted to your app is gonna come with a big price tag. Currently estimated to be a $50 billion price tag with a B. The only entities that can afford something like that are the big tech people, Google, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, and they're sort of being boxed out of this situation because of antitrust laws. So unless one of the sharks step in, it might be difficult to even find a buyer for the app just because of how expensive that is. But it's not like this hasn't happened before. During the Trump presidency, China was forced to sell Grindr to a US company. That was only 600 million. And it was forced because there was sensitive data, specifically health data, in the Grindr app. On top of that, since this has happened, there's been new laws put into place in China that would make it even more difficult to sell the app. So after the last attempt to ban TikTok, China placed more export restrictions on technology. So it would be harder for them to sell TikTok or technology that's similar to it. And China could cite this law as a precedent if ByteDance tries to sell TikTok to the US. Because at the end of the day, if there is a restriction on ByteDance or TikTok, it has to be approved by the Chinese government before they can sell it. Or at least that is my understanding. Because I tried to look up specifically what was banned. It was all in Chinese and I could not find a translation. There was a place where they told us specifically what things were added, and anything related to an algorithm was not in that list that I found. No, the only new restriction is the technology for human cell cloning and gene editing. Why are we not more focused on that? Oh, and one more problem. Even if the Chinese government fully approved of selling the app, it's not like one company owns TikTok. 60% of it is owned by independent investors, 20% is owned by TikTok's employees, and then 20% is owned by the founders. Imagine trying to come up with a good plan for sale and get it approved through the government and somehow get all these people to sell their shares in 6 months. So that's where we're at. Let's get to the book side of things. First of all is just the money aspect of it. Publishers, authors, especially indie authors, and BookTokers, like a lot of people make money off of the app, which means they would definitely fall into this bucket of a potential class action lawsuit against the US government for lost wages. Oh my gosh, it's all such a mess. Because I don't think it's a secret that BookTok has given a huge push to the publishing industry. There was a noticeable lift in book sales between 2020 and 2021 when the Rona forced us all indoors and people started making BookTok accounts. It was so influential that at one point TikTok and Barnes & Noble like joined forces for this summer book club situation. There were if you remember, there were all the tables where it was like #BookTok. And we all know the power that it has. We all saw how Fourth Wing blew up essentially overnight. And we saw the resurgence of old books that never would have had a shot. We all joke, but Ice Planet Barbarians was published in 2015. I believe it was just indie published, and then all of a sudden BookTok got a hold of it and there was a trad publishing deal. It was in Barnes & Nobles. Everyone was talking about it. And even books that BookTok has obsessed over, like Song of Achilles, Circe, those books weren't expected to go viral whatsoever. A book about the Iliad, do you really think that it was gonna go crazy until there was something like BookTok that could propel its popularity ridiculously fast? BookTok was so profitable that TikTok started looking into opening their own publishing branch. It was going to be called Eighth Note Press. I haven't seen anything since the idea was initially announced. I think there was a lot of pushback because people were like, oh, so if we don't go through your publishing, you're just going to suppress the videos from other publishers, which is fair. Like, obviously they would be promoting their own books. But even for existing publishers and retailers, like, it truly changed the way that we shop for books. And I know this has not been my favorite change, but Barnes & Noble was focusing on a more cover forward facing approach. So their shelves would actually have less books on it, which sucks. But they realize that people are going to recognize the covers because they've seen it over and over and over on TikTok. So when they walk in and they automatically see that cover, that like makes it so easy for them to sell books. And a TikTok ban, which would eliminate BookTok, could mean a lot of things for both like publishing and for readers. Some of them are good and some of them are bad. Like, it's not a one-sided issue, I don't think. Obviously, book sales would drop, which publishers would obviously not appreciate. And I feel like a lot of people who have found reading or have come back to reading through TikTok, they're not going to have that anymore. And I think the opportunity to get published would drop significantly if books aren't, a craze anymore. And I think that's especially true for indie authors. I really think TikTok has completely changed the game for indie authors. Like, we're seeing Paula Lafferty, like, her book isn't even published yet. It's basically gone viral. She did a Kickstarter for her own special edition. And I mean, it was funded like it had been funded by a traditional press because she found her audience. If BookTok went away, that would mean that publishers would have to put more dollars into marketing because they can't rely as heavily on the author to do a significant portion of their own marketing. That might take the pressure off of some authors, but overall, I think that would just mean that fewer books get pushed publicly, and there also wouldn't be the same type of explosion over certain books. And I think there's a loss of community in that. I think there's just something so fun about a book going so ridiculously viral that it's at the point we can hardly even get our hands on a copy. Like, I know that part's annoying, but overall, I think it's very fun to suddenly just be able to chat to so many people because we're all reading the same thing and we're all having fun with it at the same time. But there is the flip side, which is like the bad stuff about BookTok, which obviously fake reading has become a big issue where BookTokers are claiming to have read certain books that they haven't read. They're giving these generic reviews to get views on their videos and to get followers, but they're not actually reading the books. And that, I think, sucks. Like, people shouldn't do it. And then sort of also the flip side of these books exploding overnight is the fact that while it's like given the opportunity for any book to go viral and explode, it also occasionally can shrink like what we're looking for when we go shopping, which is why Barnes & Noble has been doing the forward-facing covers. Because if you look at BookTok and you end up in a certain section of BookTok, you just see the same 5 or 6 books over and over again. And you're not actually finding new book recommendations because we're all reading the same thing. So it's kind of weird, but overall, I feel like sentimentally, BookTok has given so many writers and readers just the best community they could have hoped for that they could not have found otherwise. Which is why it's so upsetting to think about the app getting banned, because like we would lose that. Even if we find each other on other social media platforms, things just don't quite work the same. Which is why people are saying like, oh, if this actually gets passed, hello VPN. But personally, I just don't think using a VPN is a long-term solution. And I've seen a lot of people on BookTok asking, okay, if this happens, like, where are we going? Where's the rendezvous spot? Obviously, we have options, but it just doesn't feel like any of them are really that good, because people are like, well, of course, like, Booksta is already very established. I have tried a Booksta, and I enjoy posting on my book Instagram, but I am just not as aesthetic as the girlies on Booksta. They have the most beautiful videos and posts, and they're all so curated. And it's gorgeous, but there's a lot of people on BookTok who are like, literally could not do it. Like, I just don't have the willpower. And while I'm trying to make my bookshelves prettier, like obviously, like I love these like type of covers and stuff like that, most of us are just on the side of Bookstagram is too polished to post the same way that we do on TikTok, and also there are time limits. I believe Reels can only be a minute long, and at this point, specifically with book reviews, like so many of the BookTok users are creating longer videos and deeper discussion about their books. And there's the same problem with YouTube Shorts because it also has a time limit. And in my opinion, Shorts don't feel as community-led, sort of. I don't know how to describe it because it works the same way as TikTok, but it doesn't feel the same. I think we've all agreed that we're not going to Facebook. Of course, during the last TikTok ban, everybody started talking about Clapper. I don't like Clapper. I don't know if it's just because I haven't given it the time to curate my algorithm, because I have not given it the chance, really. But it feels like Wish TikTok, if that makes sense. And it just, I don't know, like I don't get good vibes from it, but overall I feel like it is the most similar to TikTok in the way that it's set up, but I think it would require a lot of fine tuning. Some people were talking about Tumblr, and I'm not completely against re-entering a chaotic Tumblr era, but it does feel a little older. Sometimes when I go on Tumblr, it feels a little dated to me, and maybe that's just because I was a heavy user of it when I was a teenager, and then once I went to college, I basically fell off of it for the most part. And I also think, at least right now, Tumblr seems to be mostly static images and posts. I don't see like tons of videos unless it's like GIFs. My personal proposal is that we get Goodreads to make a TikTok-esque section in their app and on their website. Now, I understand that Goodreads looks like it was made in the 1990s and then never, ever, ever got an update. It just could use a little modern touch. I think if we did it right, it would be a really fun way to do BookTok, because our book reviews are already on there, and it would be so easy to connect videos to books when people go and look up reviews and stuff like that. I think it could be so fun. But I also love other sides of TikTok that aren't book related, and so that wouldn't be an overall solution to the app going away, but it could be a solution to BookTok going away if we got the right people on the job. I would love to hear your thoughts on the ban, on anything I missed, what you think about BookTok and its effect on the publishing industry and on reading in general, and where on earth the BookTok community should congregate if the app really does go away. Please let me know in the comments. Please like this video if you liked it, click subscribe if you want to talk about more book stuff. My name's Katelyn, thanks for watching. Bye.